Hey everyone, this is Johnny. Welcome back to my channel. What you have in front of you today is the Colt Delta Elite in 10mm. The weapon has already been safety checked and cleared. I want to take some time today and talk a little bit about the 10mm and maybe some of the misconceptions, maybe the things that have kept some people from buying any weapon chambered in the 10mm. I added this weapon to my collection about 10 months ago. And I just want to start off by saying that this is an awesome shooter. There's been, the misconceptions in reference to the 10mm for years has mainly been due to production issues from companies that have made weapons that have either had cracked frames or whatever other production issues that can occur. And the FBI report that complained about its strong recoil in the hands of its agents, later settling for what we have now as the 40 Smith & Wesson, which is a shortened version of the 10mm. In front of you, I have here today, just to give you some comparisons, when you look at the 10mm, which is on the right, and then the 40, which is on the left, you're going to see that the casing is basically larger on the 10 than it is on the 40. It is the same diameter. The bullets are practically identical. The only thing that changes is that the 10mm casing is larger and thus holds more powder. But you can load the 40 just about as hot. But I'm going to give you some ballistic comparisons in a little bit to kind of give you an idea. I want to compare it to the 45 ACP. I don't have the 45 ACP in front of you, but when you think about home protection, stopping power, you think about that 45 ACP, one of my favorites. And you can go look into my channel and you can see my FNP 45 tactical review that I have there. But when it comes to home defense, of course, those are the ones that you think about. And probably the reason why you've stayed away from the 10mm is because of some of the horror stories. But I want to tell you that this is a great defensive round. Even though a lot of people consider this maybe more of a hunting round, there are so many different variations in bullet weights for the 10mm, and then that I'd like to share with you today that will hopefully change the way you think about the 10mm. But my experience with the 40 has always been one of discomfort compared to the 10mm. 40 feels snappy with high muzzle flip, while the 10 feels strong with more of a kickback in the hand type feeling. I don't know how to explain it, but if you're a shooter, you know what I mean. Some weapons have a tendency, depending on the weight of the weapon and then the caliber that you're using, some have a tendency to feel snappy. In other words, real high muzzle flip, versus others have a tendency to push back into the hand, as does the 38 Super that I am such a fan of. And then also the 10mm, to me, feels that way. Personally, I prefer the 10 over the 40. I like to quickly compare some ballistics on the 10mm, the 45 ACP, and the 40 Smith & Wesson. When it comes to bullet weights, your bullet weight for the 10mm start somewhere around the 135 all the way up to the 200 grain. The 45 ACP starts out at 164 approximately to 230, and then the 40 Smith & Wesson from 135 to 205, which is a little bit larger than the 10mm. When we talk about muzzle velocity, and what we are saying or referring to is feet per second, the 10mm has a muzzle velocity from 968 to 1357. The 45 ACP being a heavier bullet, 823 to 1250, whereas the 40 Smith & Wesson has the ranges anywhere from 810 to 1350 feet per second, falling shy of the 10mm. The muzzle energy, or the foot-pound of energy, the 10mm ranges anywhere from 375 to 643, the 45 ACP, from 346 to 577, and then the 40 Smith & Wesson, the foot-pound of energy is anywhere from 360 to 604, still falling below the 10 millimeter. Now, when we're talking about stopping power, then we're talking about power factor. These are some of the things that you look into in a round that will stop an assailant, that will stop an attacker. The 10 millimeters power factor ranges from 174 to 228. The 45 ACP from 185 to 217. So the power factor of the 45 ACP falls below the 10 millimeter. And then lastly, we have the 40 Smith & Wesson, which the power factor is anywhere from 137 to 190, and those are approximates with the 40. And so that will show you that power factor, the 10 millimeter beats out the 45 ACP and the 40 Smith & Wesson. Some of the past and present players in the 10 millimeter market have been the original Bren 10, which just about started the whole craze. Now known as the Vilter Bren 10. They had multiple production issues, and expensive parts still plagues this weapon till today. The Tanfoglio EAA Witness is one of the other ones, made from European American armory. Some problems noted with that weapon still today is the adjustable rear sight issues, weak recoil springs, and magazine followers. Their best gun to this day is the Witness Elite Limited Pro, an awesome weapon. And then of course what you have in front of you today, which is the Colt Delta Elite. First year and a half, they had some frame issues that were resolved, and some people were under the impression that these guns were blowing up in people's hands and stuff, which is not true. The cracks that were in the frame did not prevent the weapon from discharging or from functioning properly. It just was an issue. It was a problem, which Colt later on fixed in their later editions of the Colt Delta Elite. And then you have the Glock 20, which has a magazine capacity of 15 rounds. And this is the way Glock advertises the 20. It advertises it as a reliable companion on every hunt. It allows a safe and accurate finishing shot even when hunting big game. So they're advertising their Glock 20 as more of a hunting weapon more than anything else. But yet the Glock 29, which is the subcompact, has a magazine capacity of 10 rounds and accepts the larger Glock 20 mags as well. And this is the way they advertise the subcompact 29, as a suitable for concealed carry and a suitable backup for hunting. Some of the other players in the 10 millimeter world is the Kimber Eclipse Custom 2, Dan Wesson, Caspian, STI, and many, many others. As I was doing some research on the 10 millimeter to bring this video to you today, I came across a write-up by Jeff Quinn of gunblast.com on the 10 millimeter cartridge. And so just for a moment here, I'd like to thank Jeff for allowing me to quote his findings and opinion, which I'm in agreement with. This is what he writes. He wrote, "The 10 millimeter is a very underappreciated cartridge, but it still has a loyalty cult following. Those who use the 10 millimeter swear by it. It does everything that the 40 Smith & Wesson does, but does it with more velocity, a flatter trajectory, deeper penetration, and harder impact. It also penetrates better and shoots flatter than the 45 ACP. It has more power than a .357 Magnum, and it does all of this in a weapon that holds a fistful of cartridges, yet is still compact enough and light enough to carry all day." I'm going to give you some links to Jeff's review, and while you're there, why don't you take some time to check out his complete site. Jeff has a lot of great reviews and picks to go with them, and you can also check them out right here on YouTube. Okay guys, well this is all the time that we have for today. I hope that you've enjoyed this short review and some basic information about the Colt Delta Elite in the 10 millimeter. I'm not giving you a full review. There are many of those right here on YouTube. Just wanted to give you some of my own personal opinions, my own experience with the 40, with the 10, with the 45. I want to say that when it comes to preferences, 45 ACP is as far as home defense is my favorite round. As far as for shooting and for pleasure, the 38 Super, and then you know, for just about anything else after that, whether it's home defense, whether it's hunting, the 10 millimeter is an awesome round that will not disappoint you.